Some things never cease to amaze me. Sunrises, hitting a golf ball straight, and the overwhelming ignorance of the common person. Here's a thought. Use Form Bs to determine classification. This, in fact, is competitive balance. Season 8 of Sun Coaches Podcast, where not everyone is funny or tells funny stories, but everyone has a story. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 8, and I'm excited today to be joined by one of the state's best guys in the business. He's actually getting to do something that most people don't get to do, and that's coach at his alma mater. Heard County Braves head coach Shane Lasseter. Thanks for being on with me.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, and appreciate everything you do for the state and coaches in general all around. It's a pleasure.
Well, Coach, I'm not trying to make light of the start of our podcast, but just to let everybody know, I hit the wrong button, and Coach had to say that twice. So, typical man of constant sorrow, technical difficulties. But usually I have to start everything off with, "Hey, Coach, where are you from?" But you actually graduated from Heard County.
I did. It's an interesting situation, and it's a place that I love and grew up here, and I was fortunate enough whenever I was a little boy to be able to be a ball boy here for Coach Norris Vaughn. And whenever he was going through, our family was kind of close to him. And then as I was able to, went off to college, but just right up the road at West Georgia, and when I was lucky enough to get back, and at that time, whenever I got back to Heard County, it wasn't, what it is now. It was one of them, meet with the superintendent, and, I had a special ed degree, and, met with Coach Barron and stuff. And it was, we'd love to have you, and you can teach it, whichever one you want to teach at, elementary, middle, or high school, kind of thing. But nowadays, people retire from here. And so I was lucky enough to come back and been blessed enough, the good Lord and a lot of good people in our buildings and along the way has allowed me to be able to stay here for a very long time. And, could not be more honored to be able to stay at the same place that, grew up watching and wanted to see do good things. And, been very blessed enough to be able to see that.
Well, what all did you play growing up in high school?
I played anything that would move. We played baseball, and whenever I was younger, I played basketball. But once I got to high school, I wrestled and then played football. And even every once in a while, I would, they'd let me go play at the area meets and region meets of golf on the side. I always say I was a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Just somebody that loved to play whatever was being played at the time. And that's still the case to this day. Anything that is competitive, I like to do. And I was, probably a better baseball player than I was anything growing up, and something I was real passionate about. Went to Southern Union and, had an injury and over there, and then decided to go to West Georgia and walk on to play football over there, and went to Southern Union to play baseball. And injury kind of led me to, to go on to West Georgia. And I was like, well, I'm going to walk on and play football there. And, played there for a little bit, and, had a couple more little injuries, but really was never a great player, just somebody that loved to play, and, but learned a lot along the ways. And, I think that's something that's so special about Heard County, that's still the case, is we got a lot of people that still play everything. And, we promote that. We like kids being kids.
Speaking of kids being kids, for those that don't know, Heard County is rural. It's in between, would you say, it ain't quite halfway, but it's in between Carrollton and LaGrange.
That's it.
Y'all are on the border.
We are on the border. We're on the west, the Alabama-Georgia line, and on 27 between Carrollton and LaGrange. And I always say that, we've been lucky enough to have a lot of really good players that allowed us to be here for a very long time. But the reason why we get a lot of foot traffic in recruiting is because it's a good bathroom break between Carrollton High School and LaGrange. And but we'll take any foot traffic we get, and so it's right on. It's in a great spot. It's in the middle. It's in the middle of nowhere in a lot of ways. Still a single red light town, but they love their football and they love their athletics and the school in general. The school is the pulse of the community, and just being a one school system makes for a lot of benefits along the ways from an athletic standpoint. But even though it's a rural school, we've been very blessed with SPLOST and the way that came about, that we have unbelievable facilities. And I always say it's a private public school, and so that's about the best way that you could describe Hurd County if you hadn't seen it in a while. And I've been very blessed to see it go from one building that was the size of a classroom, just about a big classroom that was the weight room, football offices, football locker room, offices, to where that is now our girls hitting facility. And now we have those building, each individual building for every little thing, and a covered facility. And I mean, it's just unbelievable how blessed we are to be here.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you didn't, how beautiful y'all's facilities are and what a great job that you guys have done in the community and getting the support to get those facilities when it's become an arms race,
That's right.
in a lot of places. And I imagine there's a lot of hunting and fishing growing up, since it's kind of, and I'm not being ugly, I live in the country too, but it's out
Yeah,
in the country. You got to drive 30 minutes to get to a Walmart.
that's it. And there is a lot of that, and there still is a lot of that. I've never been a big hunter or a fisherman. I do like to get on the water a little bit, but I'm you know probably a naturally boring person, to be honest with you. I like to, whatever sport's being played, that's what I like to do. And even now I like to do stuff like cutting grass and that kind of stuff. And
Oh yeah.
I grew up, so there's been a time that I've been every coach here. I've been the head baseball coach, head wrestling coach, AD for 16 years, and then head football coach now too. So I kind of took that jack of all trades and master along the way to my professional career too. And just lucky to be here, and it's just been a great place and a good life.
So when you were in college, did you know you wanted to teach and coach, or did you get in the wrong line?
I 100% knew I wanted to coach, and I knew I wanted to make a difference. And I had some good guys along the way that showed us. Like I had three different high school coaches, and they were all good to me. And but that was something about, I wanted to be a coach, and wanted to make a difference, because they had made a difference to me. And then I kind of was very passionate about, when I was in high school, I worked a lot with Special Olympics and stuff, and had a kid that became one of my dear friends, that was involved in Special Olympics when we were going through high school and stuff. His name was Willie. And so I kind of got involved with that world. And so I went the route of special ed, um, and got into teaching that way. And then of course coaching. And I guess, I mean, one thing led to another. And was able to, being in special ed, and a male at the time, and wanting to coach too, it wasn't real hard to find a job. And somebody always said that that would be a little bit easier path than the PE route. And so I had a passion for it too, but that was the route I took, so I could, I tried to have the odds in my favor at the time, and I thought that would be a better situation, and it for sure was.
Yeah, I'm a special ed co-teacher myself, and there's nothing more rewarding than working with kids that learn differently. And it's been a while now since I've been, probably 10 years since I've actually been in special ed, but I love it. And if there's anybody out there that they want to feel good about what they do every day, I would strongly encourage you to go that route. I mean, PE jobs are well, they're not a dime a dozen. They're freaking dime. Somebody's got to die for you to get one of those. But if you're a male special ed teacher, you're marketable, and it's kind of hard not to to be able to give back that way and get those kind of jobs. So after you did your West Georgia, you came right out and started working at Heard County.
Yeah, the very first year I got into my student teaching and got hooked up with Coach Barron, and it was his first year coming down to Heard County, and what a community changer he was, and he not only changed the community, he helped change my life too, and he such a visionary on what we could be, and just learned so much, and I was blessed that he allowed me to come and be part of the staff and learn. And it was, we kind of all just kind of grew up together, I guess, young coaches. And, that whenever he took that job, he brought him and the two Kerbo brothers, Randall and DJ, with him from Alexander, and Brian Hadley. And they came over, and then I just happened to be a lucky young pup that just wandered into the wrong place, I guess. And he put me to work, and just lucky enough to learn from those guys. They taught me so much, and and then we learned a lot of things together along the way as well. But this place was starving for some stuff, to work ethic and pride and all those things, and we had a couple of really good athletes at that time that that helped to change the program, along with a good schedule at the time, and that provided some belief, and from there it's just kind of spiraled into how we do things even to this day. And it's a blue collar community, and we bought into that because that's kind of how we are too. Just go to work every day, and and we still kind of follow that plan as today. Is we work as hard as you can every single day, be very consistent, and then if you'll do that over and over and over and over, you'll look back and you'll be surprised how far along you are. And it's been good. and and just something that don't happen in the coaching profession is where Coach Barron did go off and got another job, but he is back now. But he's back here working with us, coaches our OLBs, and does the kickoff team. And then DJ Kerbo's retired, but he's still on our defensive staff, and then Randall Kerbo's our offensive coordinator still. And so just to be able to be with those guys for all these years has just been such a blessing.
Well, I remember coaching the baseball game over there, and I don't know if I'm sure it has changed dramatically, but I remember the baseball field back in the early 2000s was kind of like down in a hole, and the fans set up above you.
Yep, that's still the same way.
Oh, that was awesome. I thought
yeah.
that was like the neatest thing, because they couldn't get in your head. They couldn't they were literally on your head, but they couldn't talk to you through a fence because they were, if you didn't look up, you didn't really have to.
Yeah, they were kind of out of sight, out of mind.
And some dude hit one out on y'all. Y'all were so good. And some dude, left-handed kid, he hit one out in right field. I don't think it's landed yet, but that was a 10-run, 5-inning shake hands. We enjoyed it. Y'all hit on back to Villa Rica, and it was, or Lithia Springs. I can't remember which one I was at, but it was a cool setup. And you were the head baseball coach at one point in time.
Yep, and I mean, it might have been then, so I was the head baseball coach for 7 years here, and still coached football, and then was the AD as well. And then, that was something that was a great experience for me to learn, how to run a program and how to, deal with parents in a different way, and then kind of separate it from turning around and listening to, watching Coach Barron do all the things he's doing, then turn around and doing the organizational piece from the AD standpoint, and got to have the benefit of learning a lot. And I'm a big resource guy. I'm always trying to pick people's brains around the state, and so I feel like even though I've been in one place, I've always been a constant learner to learn and kind of develop to where we are today. And I think that's helped me a lot as I whenever I was taking over the football program, to be able to just kind of hit the ground running, and and it's worked out for us pretty good.
What are some things that you enjoy the most about being athletic director?
I love the organizational piece. I know it drives a lot of people crazy, but I like the structure of how things run, and the organizing each event and organizing a lot of stuff. That's why I still, we've taken on the weight meet with the GACA, and I love to run those type of events, and and just to be able to meet people and talk to people, and then I like watching the kids. I mean, that's the thing that you got into education for, is to be around the kids. And so whatever is going on, just growing up, being a guy that loved to play sports and whatever it was, I enjoy going to going to games and going to watching our kids play and competing, and just trying to have a vision for the whole overall program was something that I really enjoyed. Working with other coaches and stuff too, but the organizational piece of scheduling and all the stuff that a lot of people don't like to do, I love to do that kind of stuff. I'm a pretty OCD guy on that, probably to a fault. With practice plans and what we're doing and where we're trying to go to, and what we're doing every day of the year, just about to get where we need to go, and constantly reevaluating where we're at. And we practice on the clock and all that kind of stuff. And so that kind of fit my personality, being an AD, I guess. And and I don't mind staying busy and working, and I really don't know another way to do it, to be honest with you.
Well, someone that's been in special education also, you have a servant mentality. And when you're an athletic director, it seems like you have to have other than being organized, you also
Yeah,
have to be a servant of your coaches and, hey guys, what can I do to help you?
that's right. I felt like my job every day, I was the AD, and I feel like it's the same way now as the head football coach. But my job every day was to do whatever was necessary that was going to make the job easier for the head coaches. And then I hope that they would do the same to make everybody's job easier for the assistant coaches. And instead of, a lot of people work the other way, trying to serve up, I think you should serve down. And so I thought that was always my kind of plan, is what do we do today that can help, the basketball coach out? Well, it may be helping to set up the gym. It may be sweeping the floor. It may be trying to find a bus driver, or it may be dealing with a parent. But if I can help make their day better and their job better, then maybe they can coach better. And that was kind of my philosophy. And I would say it's the same way now with all of the assistant football coaches. Is my number one job is, of course, is to run the whole program, but you got to trust the people that you have, and we got some great ones. And so my job is to be able to do whatever I can to make sure that they're able to coach better every single day. And so sometimes that is redirection, but a lot of times that is, giving them the resources they need, and trying to give them the time that they need to do things. And just sometimes it's just getting out of their way. And so I always thought that was my philosophy on things, and I feel like that's worked out pretty good.
Well, being organized and having a servant leadership mentality, you also probably got to be a master communicator, because you're having to deal with stakeholders in the community, the other administrators, as well as all the teachers, all the coaches when you're the AD. And when you're just the head baseball coach,
Yes.
you don't have to, you don't have to joke. You got your own little baseball community, more or less, or even in a small town like Heard County, you still got people that they're baseball people, or
Yeah.
they give to this, or they do. And when you're the AD, I imagine you get to wear a lot of different hats, and that probably doesn't make for boring days.
Yeah. And that it doesn't. And whenever going through that, I mean, I think you're dead on the money. As long as communication is key, and especially nowadays, there's all kinds of platforms that you can do that, whether it be through newsletters, or that's something we do still to this day, or getting information out about what's going on, what just happened the week before, what's coming up, and then that kind of stuff. But I think just daily communication with the people, and knowing that you can, somebody that can pick up the phone and call you, but you're also, are constantly on the front end of communicating. And I think that that's something that a lot of people nowadays, I would say, whenever I hear about some parent problems in a in a school, or a parent issue, or a player issue, and or even assistant coaches and head coaches, a lot of times it does come back to just lack of communication, and that there it could have been avoided a lot of different ways that people would just been able to sit down and talk, or would have done something on the front end to fix it. And that's something that we believe in here, is over communicating. And because I think that dead time and that dead space allows people to make their own assumptions, and then they jump to different conclusions and all that kind of stuff. And so the more that you can do that on the front end, as a young guy or even an old guy, I think is better. And that's one of them things that I got told a long time ago, is you can adapt or die in about anything. In today's world, it's so easy to communicate. And so some of those old guys that don't want to do that, they'll kind of die out in a little ways. And I just chose to try to adapt to that culture.
Well, preventative maintenance, and ounce of prevention's better than a pound to cure, and getting out ahead of it. And like you said, this day and time, there's really no excuse in not being able to communicate, because there's so many different ways. Everybody's got a cell phone. Everybody is locked into some kind of social media platform, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, or Instagram, or whatever. I mean, there's ways to promote your kids, promote your program, get the information out there, so that there's really no excuse. And speaking of which, think back to last season. How much time did you lose to creating practice plans from scratch, building scouting reports, reteaching concepts you installed in the spring? Spiral XO is the all-in-one platform built to give you that time back. Playbook creation, practice planning, game prep, in-game analytics, built-in player quizzes, and more. Programs using it are saving 10+ hours every week. That's more time for actually coaching. This off-season is the perfect time to get everything dialed in before you hit the field. Book a free demo at spiralxo.com or call 470-222-3039 and tell them Coach Lamb sent you. And we're doing it at Dodge County, and we like it. It's very user friendly. It's pretty intuitive, and someone who's organized, coach, can speak to how important game planning is and getting that stuff together there without necessarily promoting this company and this software program. It's also developed by a coach's kid, so he gets it. So let's segue into you becoming a head football coach. So you're on the staff. You guys win state championship. I mean, that was probably awesome. How awesome was that?
That was incredible. It was just, at that time, we had been a really good program for a while, and just had never really got over that. And then the year before, we had went to the semifinals for the first time in school history, and got beat on the last second. And I mean, it was almost devastating. Thinking about how close you got, and so many people just don't understand in today's world how hard it is to win a state championship. Everybody always talks about the state championship, and it's like if you don't win it, it's a failure kind of thing. And there's a lot of really good coaches out there that are doing a great job, even better than sometimes a state championship run, that are 6-4 and 7-4 and get beat in the first round, but they are getting the most out of them. And you just, whenever you're in a small town like this, you got what you got kind of thing, and so you don't know how many opportunities you're going to get. So to be able to go right back that next year, and we did catch a lot of breaks along the way. It was great matchups, and that benefited us to our strengths, and you got to have those things. And we had a big blow go our way in the semifinals, where a kid had missed a field goal, and we were able to win in overtime here at home, and just to be able to win the state championship at a place that you had felt like you had poured into and had a major impact in. And my boys were on the sideline with me. They were young then and being ball boys, and it was a special family moment for us, for sure. And my whole family, my mom and dad, and just to be able to do it here, it meant a lot. And, and hopefully we're going to be able to do it again before too long.
So when you take over as the head coach, what were some things that you implemented to not necessarily change the heart and soul of Heard County? Because at this point in time, y'all have kind of established a culture and everything else. But just to put your own mark on it, what were some things that you said, all right, this is Coach Lasseter's team?
I think that was a challenge, to be honest. It was something that was not a supernatural thing, for me to just come in and want to change certain things, because in a lot of ways there was a lot of things that didn't need to be changed. And so, but what we did do that it was a little bit different is I wanted to get to a point where we were just a very consistent program. We wanted to be a consistent team in all three phases of the game, and where that we were going to get to a point where we would eliminate ourselves with turnovers and all the stuff that coaches talk about. And so I just really went to talking about the details and doing a lot of family periods. And we started practicing our 6 through 12 together in the summer and doing a lot of circuits and stuff that I was just wanted to be really big on the skill sets to try to, make sure not so much worry about the game planning at that time, but to try to just get to where our whole program was bought in on being consistent, and so that we never had those drops again. And so, of course, kids come and go, and in a small town, highs and lows, and you all know about that. And but what we wanted to do is we wanted to try to limit the valleys as much as possible. And whenever we did have those guys, to be in a position to where when we peaked, we really peaked. And so I think that's the biggest thing is the organization piece and the consistency of the fundamentals. And we do a lot of stuff year round. We implemented where we have all of our kids together year round in weight training. So we're able to kind of, get ahead on a lot of things as far as some skill development and that sort of thing, even this time of year, and work on little details in speed and conditioning that translates to tackling and that kind of stuff. And so we wanted to make sure that everybody in the program, no matter who they were, that they understood what our foundation was going to be built on. And some of the things we did was we just started really, practicing every kid. And I know that sounds dumb to somebody that has never been in a small school, but there's sometimes that a kid in a small school, whenever you're practicing offense and defense and all that stuff, they can get lost in the shuffle, and it's hard to really develop them. And so we went to practicing, no matter what the numbers were, we went to practicing old and young. And so we went, our offense was practicing with the old, our defensive staff would be with the young, and then vice versa. And so that we were constantly working on the development piece and trying to really shape every kid in our program. And I think that's probably the thing that I brought to the staff, that we were. It's not that we weren't doing that. It was a more intentionality of what we were going to do from a consistent basis, week in and week out, year round. And I think that's kind of my wheelhouse, is just being a consistent worker. I'm nothing special, no flashy guy, and our staff isn't that. We even say to our kids, our program is the sum of us is better than the individual parts. And so we kind of bought into that in every aspect of our football program, and that the sum of us of doing all those little things was going to matter whenever it counts the most. And we've seen that progress for sure.
And what are some ways that you've changed your approach to spring practice over the years? Since you're at a small school and you share athletes, how do you do spring practice? What do you do? Do you do? Has it changed over the years? I'm always fascinated with the different ways people attack spring.
We are all skill based sets. We don't do a spring practice. We do the 2 scrimmages. So many people always talk about sharing the kids, but in a small school, you're sharing the coaches too. And
Right. Yeah.
so I mean, so like if it's really hard to do spring whenever your running backs coach and your linebackers coach and your DBs coach and and your wide receivers coach, and all those guys are are doing a spring sport, so plus of course our kids. And so we're just, this time of year we kind of break our whole spring up into, we're all about the bulk and getting stronger up into the weight meet, and which is in March. And then from there we turn it into some, we call it March Madness, and we divide them up into teams and do stuff during the weight training time of, a lot of skill based stuff, and things on the field, speed and development, competing, and just trying to get them to be the most competitive people that they can be no matter what's going on. And we do that all the way up till spring break. And then after spring break, we kind of get into a lot of the skill sets as far as like, some stuff on the field as far as like, you know, speed and agility, and what, taking great angles on stuff, and things that are all going to translate to whenever we actually start practicing. And so we don't have a spring practice, but we're intentional with everything that we're doing all spring long to get to that point. So whenever we get into the summer, we hit the ground running and try to make up as much ground as we can. But we always felt like the two scrimmages just for our school was the best possible scenario, because you got all your kids, it gives you a chance to play twice and clean up a lot of stuff, and it just works good for us. School's different, but for us that's the best formula.
Well, Coach, give a little plug for the GACA weight meet and explain to people what that is and how that works and why y'all decided to take that on at your place.
Well, we were blessed enough to have the facility to do it, man, and that's one of the number one things, and that's just always been a real important piece to us, and so we've always been real passionate about the weight meet. And as it's kind of fizzled out in a lot of places, we just wanted to try to bring it back, and the GACA has been gracious enough for us to kind of take it over and run with it. But it is on March the 7th, and it is open to all classifications. And what we do is, it's real simple. You come in, single A comes in, they weigh in, they move over to lift, they hit a bench, they hit a clean, and they move over to our pack side and get awards. And meanwhile, while they're lifting, 2A's weighing in. And then while they're single A's in the awards and 2A's lifting, 3A's weighing in. So you're not there all day, but it's a great halfway point of the semester for your kids to come and see where they're at. And you can have a full team full of 30 people, boys and girls, or you can have, you can bring 2 kids up there, and so they can compete for an individual state championship, and they also can compete for a team state championship. And it's just ran like a track meet. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, I'd love to tell you all about it. But we'd love for everybody to come out and do that, because it's just always good to compete, and it's a good social time for the coaches as well, to be able to see everybody, and it gives you a good measuring stick. It's no matter what type of program you got going on, you're a brand new program where you bring them and say, hey man, there's some really strong kids around the state. You think you're strong. And then on the flip side, if you are those strong kids, it gives them a chance to reward themselves and show that they have been putting in all that work, and they can reap those benefits and get a little glory for it.
And what was that date again, Coach?
March the 7th.
Awesome. March the 7th. That's a Saturday. The Lee Murray GACA weight competition state championship weight lift meet at Heard County High School. I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that a little bit. So we talked about spring, and what are some things you talked about, you kind of touched on it earlier, about how you approach summer. When you work the 6 through 12 all together, how do you approach June and July when it comes to your summer program?
June and July is completely different in our mind, but we have our middle school and high school together. They lift and practice at the same time, and we're blessed enough to have the facility to do it. So we got that buy-in from all the coaches working together. But June, we go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we changed that a few years ago to where so many people play travel ball and they AAU and all kinds of stuff. And most of those things are in June. And we felt like that as long as we took up the middle of that, most of that stuff happens on the weekend. And so with us having to share kids, that was just a better fit for us. And we kind of go a little bit longer on those days, but you're trading a little bit longer for a 4-day, weekend each in the month of June. And we hope to be playing late, so we don't want to burn them out as well, but we throw a good bit and go to a couple of 7-on-7s and host one here too. But we just kind of stay on the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as much as possible, because at the end of the day, we want them to be kids too, and we don't want them to be tired of football ever. That's one thing. Coach Lamb one time, Hal Lamb, I heard him say one time that the most important thing at the end of the season is that the kids still want to be there, and that has never been more true. And so we don't want kids to be tired of football in September and October and November, because we're 5 days a week and throw 100 times and all that stuff. And so that's kind of our thought process in June, and it allows them to play multiple things, because football and baseball and all that stuff's no different. Let's talk about the example to when I'm talking to young kids, that it's kind of like when boys are trying to talk to girls, if you all of a sudden you start making them pick, then they may not pick you. And so I would just rather have them in August and July instead of forcing them to pick, and because they may not pick me. And we have so few of athletes in our school, we got to have them all. But when we come back from 4th of July week, and we go heavy 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, we'll have an OTA patty camp, and then of course lead up into the 2 scrimmages and be rocking and rolling from there.
So who do you put on an OTA, or do y'all go somewhere?
We've done it both ways, and we've been putting on an OTA here in July, and we're blessed enough to have that, what we call the pavilion, which is a 70-yard covered facility here. And so in July, it's not real hard to get a few teams to want to come to our OTA and do it here and do it underneath that. And it adds a big time benefit for us to be able to, no matter what the wet bulb says and all that stuff, we're able to go out and get after it pretty good. And so we've been hosting it here for the last few years. Have some different teams that they've rotated in and rotated out, and sometimes it's because we're playing them in the regular season, they don't come or whatever. But we're having one in I think it's the first full week back from July the 4th this year. I'd have to look at my calendar.
So what can people expect to see out of Heard County this coming year in 26?
Well, I hope it's a lot of the same. We've been very blessed to have a really good football team the last couple of years, and a lot of it has been because it's the same kids. They kind of had to grow up on the job training, and we have most of our offense back. And so whenever you have the trigger man, Ethan Tisdale, we have him back as quarterback, and we have some really good receivers and tailbacks back, and so we got a lot of good players coming back on offense, but we do lose our kicker, and we lose a good bit of players on the defensive side. That has made a tremendous impact at this school, and a couple of seniors that has been really good players. But we hope that we got some young guys that are working really hard to replace them, and I hope that you're going to see that consistent football team that may not be super flashy, may not be over the top, but I hope you see a team that's really gritty and hard to beat, and maybe we can have the ball bounce our way a few times.
Well, here's a 2-part question. How did reclass affect you this cycle? And as an athletic director, how aggravating is reclass to you that has to be over the entire athletic program?
I think the reclass stuff is all based on your situation. Somebody's going to be happy and somebody's going to be mad. And we've been lucky enough to kind of stay with a lot of the same teams. We've kind of gone north, and our region has turned into a really good competitive region with a lot of similar communities playing each other. So reclass didn't change us a ton, other than the fact that we had a couple of schools that moved out, and then they were replaced with a couple more Floyd County schools. And so we're kind of staying the same this past time. But, the biggest thing is just trying to get that rivalry stuff going. And, it's really nice to play the same people for, 8 or 10 years in a row instead of 2 years and then starting over, and 2 years and starting over, and all that stuff. So that's the only aggravating part of it from a football standpoint. The two people that played in the state championship will be moving up to AAA. So, that's a good thing, I guess, if you're looking at it from a competitive standpoint with us. But it's always situational, and so everybody, depending on what side of that they fall on that reclass, is either going to be happy or upset. But I've learned that we're kind of out here in an outlier position where we can't go across the Alabama line, so we're just kind of where we are. So they can only send us really one way, and so depends on where the numbers fall. We'll always know at least we're going to have about 4 or 5 of the same teams each year, and so it's not too bad.
Well, starting to ease into your back half of your career and turn into an old head, what are some things about the game, whether it's the way coaches are or, kids, and not necessarily X's and O's, but the high school football or baseball, you've done it all, you've been an AD. What are things about high school athletics that have changed, good, bad, or indifferent, since you got in it?
Oh man, there's been a lot of things that have changed, and I think that social media and the old reality versus what is real, and how people think that they see things in a different light. So the grass is always greener on the other side, kind of thing. And so the transfer and going all over the place has obviously dwindled down into the high school ranks, and that's been something that has been completely different than it used to be. You kind of used to always have what you have, and so you got kids moving all over the place. And I think that that's been something that has changed drastically over the years. But the thing that has not changed, and I don't think will ever change, is the kids itself. I feel like kids are do what you expect them to do, and and as long as you provide that expectation of what you're wanting out of them, kids are still kids, and most of the time they want to please and they want to do right, and it's just up to us as the adults to do that. And then the other thing I think is coaches in general. You see all these guys, and we've been very blessed to have a lot of guys that stayed loyal here. But I see a lot of guys that makes me concerned, longevity wise in the profession, that they want to coach 1 year, and all of a sudden they want to be a coordinator or the head coach and all that stuff. And there is supposed to be a natural progression to things, whether you're talking about a freshman working into a senior, or you're talking about a young coach that's working into being a head coach. I would just advise everybody, no matter what it is, whether you're a parent or a coach or even a player, is just to slow down and enjoy the process and be where your feet are, and just work your tail off wherever that is. And if you'll continue to do that over and over, good things will happen for you, no matter what that situation is.
How much have you enjoyed being able to coach your kids coming through?
Man, it's the best time of my life. And I was very lucky to have Coach Barron to kind of tell me about making sure I enjoyed it, and Coach Scott Peavy. He used to be in our region a long time ago, and he coached his son, and he always told me just to try your best to enjoy it. And it was tough whenever he was young. And I got two kids. I got a senior this year and a freshman. And it was tough, early on. And I don't think I did a great job of doing that. And it was so much, trying to push him to be who I thought he could be. And but the best thing that happened to me in the coaching my own kid is he allowed me to be able to enjoy it, because he played the game the right way. And and he was just named Defensive Player of the Year in the state this year. And just by him being able to play the right way, he took the pressure off of me of being that coach's boy that's playing. And so I credit my kid for my enjoyment more so than me just thinking about it on the front end. But I just think that, that's such a tough thing. and everybody's situation is different. But I was just so blessed that my kid got to do what I got to do, except he got to do it firsthand. He got to be. He's been on practice. He's been at practice at Hurd County High School every day of his entire life, except whenever he was playing middle school and they practiced at the middle school. And so being able to have him on, Max before he's about to graduate, being able to have him by my side every single day and having that family environment at Hurd County that allowed him to do that. Now I have Major, who's a freshman. He was the same exact way. Man, it's such a blessing. And I have too, is gives up so much time for other kids. And I was just lucky enough that my kids wanted to be a part of whatever I was doing. And so they got lugged around all the time to games, but we wouldn't have it any other way. And so I'm thankful for them more so than, and how they approached it and how they made it easy for me, because it was by far the most enjoyable time of my life for sure.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and just sharing with how you pour into kids, whether they're football players, soccer players, golfers, whatever it may be, as your roles as a head coach, head baseball coach, head football coach, athletic director over the years, and being able to spend your career in your hometown. That's pretty awesome.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I thank you for everything that you do across the state. And it's the best profession in the world to be able to be with kids every single day. And I look forward to listening to you.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate you.